My name is Victoria Bennett, and at 27, I thought I had finally built a life far away from the family that threw me out with one old suitcase when I was 18. But the day I came back to the family home in Traverse City, Michigan, just to pick up a few personal things after my grandfather's funeral, my older brother was already waiting at the door. Unemployed and broke. Then get lost, he sneered, slamming the key in the lock right in front of me. My sister stood behind him with her arms crossed, smirking like she'd been waiting for this moment. Dad turned his back and walked inside without a word. Mom gave me one cold glance and quietly closed the window. I stood on the porch, suitcase at my feet, feeling the final thread to this family snap for good. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just pulled out my phone and dialed the one number my grandfather had made me memorize years ago, the number of his lawyer, Mr. Harold Mitchell. I put it on speaker. His calm voice cut through the chilly air. "Victoria, the reading happened this morning. Your grandfather left the entire Bennett family cherry orchard valued at around $1,800,000 completely to you. Full ownership, full control." A split second of silence. Then, from inside the house, I heard my brother's furious shout, something crashing to the floor, and panicked voices yelling over each other. In just minutes, everything flipped. Before I tell you exactly what happened next and how far they went to try to take it all back, let me know, where are you listening from right now and what time is it for you? Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe if you want to see how my grandfather's final move changed everything. Because trust me, this story is only getting started. As the panicked shouts echoed from inside the house, my mind drifted back to how it all started, to the roots of the favoritism that had poisoned our family for years. The Bennett family had always been tied to the land in Traverse City, Michigan, a place famous for its endless cherry orchards stretching across rolling hills under wide northern skies. Our orchard, sprawling over hundreds of acres, was the heart of everything. It was my grandfather, George Bennett, who built it from nothing back in the 1970s. He bought the first plots of farmland with his savings from factory work, planted the earliest Montmorency and Balaton trees by hand, and turned it into the thriving Bennett family cherry orchard that fed generations. George was the true soul of the place, rugged, wise, with hands scarred from decades of pruning and harvesting. He dreamed of keeping the orchard pure, a living legacy passed down intact, not carved up for quick profit or turned into some soulless factory. My parents, Stephen and Patricia Bennett, inherited the house on the property after George moved into a smaller cottage nearby. They raised 3 kids there, Nathan the eldest at 35, Kayla 32, and me, Victoria, the youngest by far. From the start, Nathan was crowned the golden child, the sole heir in Mom and Dad's eyes. He could do no wrong. As a teenager, he got the brand new truck while I biked to school. When he flunked community college classes, Dad covered the bills anyway and handed him oversight of the eastern fields at just 22 long before he proved he could handle it. Kayla wasn't far behind in the pampering. She was the obedient one, always agreeing with whatever Mom said, flashing that perfect smile. For her high school graduation, they sent her on a European backpacking trip, fully funded, no questions asked. When she wanted to study fashion in New York, Dad co-signed loans without hesitation. And when she married at 28, they threw her a lavish wedding at the lakeside resort, sparing no expense on flowers, catering, or the open bar. I was different. Closer to grandfather George than anyone. From age 8, I'd trail him through the rows of trees at dawn, learning to spot blight on leaves, to thin blossoms for better fruit, to time the harvest just right, so the cherries burst with tart sweetness. He'd hoist me onto his shoulders to reach higher branches, telling stories of the orchard's early days while we filled baskets. "This land isn't just business, Vicky," he'd say, his voice gravelly from years of pipe smoke. "It's family. Keep it whole. Don't let them turn it into machines and concrete." Mom and Dad never understood that bond. To them, I was the stubborn one, the dreamer who argued too much. The favoritism showed in every little way, sharp and cutting. When Nathan wanted new equipment, a state-of-the-art sprayer and tractor combo costing over $100,000, Dad approved it instantly, even though Nathan's sections yielded lower than average. He's the future of this place. Dad would grunt, brushing off my questions about the debt. Kayla's whims got the same treatment. After college, she decided she needed a condo in town for independence. Mom and Dad bought it outright, handing over the keys like it was nothing. When her boutique clothing store struggled, they bailed her out twice, no lectures attached. Me, I fought for every scrap. High school honors meant nothing. They didn't chip in for college applications. I scraped together scholarships for environmental science, focusing on sustainable agriculture, the very principles grandfather taught me. Summers I waitressed double shifts at the diner to cover books and rent. When I came home exhausted, Mom would sigh, "If you'd just help more around here like Nathan." Arguments always ended the same. If Nathan snapped at me for suggesting better soil rotation, Dad sided with him. "He's managing now, Victoria. Respect that." When Kayla borrowed my clothes without asking and ruined them, Mom defended her. "She's going through a lot with the wedding planning. Be understanding." The cracks widened over the years. Nathan pushed for expansion industrial processing plants to cannon freeze cherries on-site, chasing bigger profits. Grandfather resisted quietly, but after his health faded, Nathan lobbied Dad harder. Then came the breaking point. I was 18, home for summer break after my freshman year. Nathan cornered me in the barn one evening, blueprints spread on a crate. "You need to drop out," he said flatly. "Come work here full-time. No pay at first, we'll call it family contribution. With you on board, I can secure that bank loan to build the processing facility. Turn this into a real operation." I stared at him. Grandfather doesn't want that. He wants the orchard preserved, not industrialized. Nathan's face reddened. "Grandfather's old school. This is how we survive. If you won't help, you're selfish. Draining the family for your fancy degree while I carry everything." I refused. Flat out. "I'm studying sustainable farming. Ways to keep places like this alive without destroying them." He exploded. Stormed into the house, rallying everyone. That night at dinner, he laid it out. I was ungrateful, abandoning the family legacy. Kayla chimed in, calling me entitled. Mom nodded along, eyes averted. Dad slammed his fist on the table. "If you won't commit to this family, then you're not part of it." No one defended me. Not a word. Grandfather was too ill to intervene. He'd been moved to assisted living by then. The next morning, they packed one old suitcase with my clothes and childhood things. Dad drove me to the bus station in silence. "Don't come back until you change your mind," he said as I stepped out. I didn't cry then either. Just boarded the bus south, vowing to build my own life far from their poison. But as those memories flooded back on the porch that day, something shifted inside me. Those memories of betrayal faded as the reality of the last 9 years sharpened in my mind. At 18, I had nothing but that single suitcase and a bus ticket south. No safety net, no tearful goodbyes, just the cold determination to survive. I rented a cramped studio in Ann Arbor, paid for with tips from waitressing graveyard shifts at a 24-hour diner. Eggs over easy at 3 a.m., coffee refills for truckers, greasy counters wiped until my hands cracked. Every dollar went toward tuition. Summers I followed the migrant crews north again, picking cherries in orchards that weren't ours. Back-breaking work under relentless sun fingers stained red for weeks, hauling 30-pound lugs up ladders from dawn to dusk. The pay was better than serving tables, and it kept me close to the land I loved, even if it hurt to harvest fruit that would never carry the Bennett name. I poured everything into my degree in sustainable agriculture at Michigan State. Late nights in the library, lab reports on soil microbiology, field studies on cover cropping, and integrated pest management. I graduated top of my class, debt light, only because I never stopped hustling. What my family never knew, what they could never know, was that Grandfather George had been watching from afar, quietly protecting me the whole time. A separate account appeared in my name shortly after I left. Every semester, tuition payments arrived without explanation. Rent checks showed up when I was short. No notes, no calls, just steady support funneled through a trust he set up years earlier. He believed in me when no one else did, saw that I was the only one who shared his vision for the orchard's future. After graduation, I built a career on my own terms. I started as a farm manager for a small organic cherry operation near Leelanau, implementing crop rotation natural predators instead of chemicals and soil amendments that restored depleted fields. Within 2 years, their yields increased 20% while cutting input costs. Word spread. I consulted for half a dozen orchards across the peninsula, earning certifications in organic practices, designing pollinator habitats, and pioneering agro-tourism models, you-pick days, farm stays, seasonal festivals that brought city families out to wander the rows and fill their own baskets. Revenue doubled for those farms without selling a single acre or building a factory. I proved Grandfather's way could work in the modern world. Every chance I got, I drove north to see him. Weekends when the trees were bare or during harvest, when the branches hung heavy with scarlet fruit. We'd sit on the porch of his little cottage overlooking the orchard he built. His health had declined steadily. Heart issues, arthritis in those once strong hands, but his eyes still lit up when he talked about the land. "Nathan's pushing your father again," he'd say, voice thin but steady. "Wants to sell off the back 40 to developers, condos with lake views, or worse, tear out half the trees for a processing plant. Says it's progress." He'd shake his head, staring at the horizon. "They don't understand. This isn't just profit. It's roots. It's who we are." I'd hold his hand, promise him I'd never let that happen if I could help it. He never told me about the will, then never hinted at what he was planning. Just squeezed my fingers and said, "You're the only one who gets it, Vicky. The only one." As winters grew harder on him, visits became more frequent. I'd bring soups from the city, read him articles on new sustainable varieties resistant to climate stress. We'd watch snow dust the dormant trees, talking quietly about grafting techniques and bloom forecasts. Then came the call last December. He passed peacefully in his sleep, the nurse said. No lingering suffering, just gone. The funeral was small, held in the old Presbyterian church in town. A handful of old-timers from the co-op neighbors who'd known him since the 70s, a few seasonal workers who'd respected him. My family sat in the front pew, Nathan stone-faced in a black suit, Kayla dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue for show, Mom and Dad rigid with grief that felt more like inconvenience. I sat in the back row alone. No one acknowledged me. No one invited me to the reception afterward. I didn't expect them to. A few days later, still raw from the loss, I made the drive back one last time. Just to collect the few things I'd left in Grandfather's cottage years ago. Old photo albums, his handwritten pruning journals, the carved cherry wood box he'd given me for my 16th birthday. Sentimental pieces my family would toss without a thought. I pulled up to the main house first, thinking someone might let me onto the property without issue. That's when Nathan appeared at the door, ready to slam it in my face all over again. The days after the funeral blurred into a tense waiting game. 10 days later, we all gathered in the sterile conference room of Harold Mitchell's law office downtown Traverse City. Mahogany table, leather chairs, the faint scent of old paper and coffee. Nathan sat dead center, legs spread wide like he already owned the place, smirking at his phone. He'd bragged to anyone who'd listen that he'd pre-approved a massive expansion loan, just waiting on the inheritance to seal it. Kayla perched beside him, perfectly manicured nails tapping, flashing smug glances my way. Mom and Dad flanked them, faces tight but expectant. I sat at the end, alone, hands folded, knowing something they didn't. Mr. Mitchell cleared his throat and began reading in his measured baritone. The last will and testament of George Bennett. To my grandson Nathan Bennett and granddaughter Kayla Bennett, I leave personal bequests of $50,000 each in appreciation of blood ties. To my son Stephen and daughter-in-law Patricia, the family home, and 10 acres surrounding it. Nathan leaned back, satisfied. Too soon. And to my granddaughter Victoria Bennett, I bequeath the entirety of the Bennett family cherry orchard comprising 150 acres of prime cherry-producing land, the on-site processing building, all equipment vehicles, and associated assets valued at approximately $1,800,000. Full ownership and complete control vested solely in Victoria. The room froze. Mr. Mitchell continued without pause. With the following binding provisions. First, no sale, transfer, or mortgaging of any portion of the orchard shall occur within 5 years without Victoria Bennett's express written consent. Second, no family member shall manage, operate, or make decisions regarding the orchard without Victoria's explicit approval. Third, should any beneficiary contest or litigate this will in any way their share, and the entire contested estate shall immediately revert to the Young Farmers Conservation Trust. Nathan's face drained of color, then flooded red. He shot up, chair scraping violently. "This is bullshit," he roared, slamming his fist on the table. "She manipulated him. He's been senile for years, talking to trees, forgetting names. She poisoned his mind while we ran the damn place." Kayla gasped, hand to chest like a wounded dove. How could you, Victoria? After everything we've done for you." Mom's lips thinned to a white line. Dad stared at the table, jaw clenched, saying nothing. Mr. Mitchell raised a hand calmly. "The will was executed 2 years ago, witnessed by 3 parties with medical certification of sound mind. It's ironclad." Nathan ignored him, eyes locked on me with pure venom. "You'll never pull this off. You have no idea how to run it. You'll bankrupt the whole thing in a season, and we'll be there to watch you beg." The ride back to the house was silent fury in 2 cars. I followed them, knowing I had to collect the last of grandfather's journals from the cottage. The moment I stepped onto the driveway, Nathan was waiting, blocking the path like a wall of rage. "You think you're clever," he snarled, stepping close enough I could smell the sweat and coffee on him. "Some forgotten princess swooping in to steal what's mine. I've bled for this orchard while you played farm girl elsewhere." Kayla stood behind him, arms crossed. "You're a parasite, Victoria. Always have been. Grandfather pitied you, that's all this is." Mom hovered near the door, eyes down. Dad leaned against the porch rail, silent as stone, his silence louder than any shout. Nathan grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. "You'll fail. I'll make sure every supplier, every buyer, every worker knows you're a fraud. You'll be lucky to harvest a single cherry." I yanked free. "It's not yours to threaten anymore." His laugh was ugly, bitter. "Get your shit and get out. You're not welcome here. Not ever again." He stormed inside, returned with my small duffel, the one I'd brought for grandfather's things, and hurled it down the steps. It landed with a thud at my feet. Kayla smirked from the doorway. Nathan loomed over me one last time. "This isn't over. You'll choke on this." Then he slammed the door, the deadbolt clicking like a gunshot. Mom's shadow vanished from the window. Kayla's silhouette lingered a moment, victorious. I stood there on the porch, the cold Michigan air biting through my coat, the weight of their hatred crushing down like a vice. 9 years of building myself up, and in one afternoon, they stripped me bare again, family turning feral over money and pride. But as the echo of that lock faded, I pulled out my phone. Mr. Mitchell's words still rang in my ears as I dialed the number on speaker that cold afternoon. The following week, I wasted no time. I called my closest friend, Ryan Hayes, the one person who'd stood by me through every low point since college, and told him everything. By Friday, his pickup was loaded with boxes, and we were heading north to claim what was now undeniably mine, the cozy log house grandfather had built deep inside the orchard grounds. We moved in that weekend. The house smelled of aged pine and faint cherry wood smoke from the old fireplace. Dust covered the furniture, but the views from every window, rows of dormant trees stretching toward the bay, made it feel like home instantly. Ryan took the guest room without hesitation. "Partners in crime," he grinned, hauling in the last suitcase. "First order of business transformation." I walked the 150 acres with soil testing kits, mapping out the shift to full organic certification. We cleared out the shed stacked with chemical fertilizers and pesticides. Nathan had stockpiled gallons of the stuff, hauled away for proper disposal. In their place came compost deliveries, beneficial insect releases, and cover crops seeded between rows to rebuild the earth naturally. Spring brought planting. I sourced premium varieties: Emperor Francis for sweeter eating cherries, Regina for late-season firmness, and a block of heirloom ballotons grandfather had always loved. Ryan and I worked side by side, digging holes, staking young trees, mulching with straw from local farms. My hands blistered, then calloused, but every new sapling felt like a promise kept. The processing barn got the biggest overhaul. We gutted outdated equipment, installed small batch kettles and bottling lines suited for artisanal production. Summers smelled of simmering fruit as we tested recipes: tart cherry jam with vanilla bean-spiced cherry preserves. Even a limited-run cherry wine fermented in oak barrels. I designed simple labels myself, deep crimson with gold lettering, and named the entire line George's Legacy Cherries. Every jar carried a small tag, handcrafted from trees planted in the 1970s, preserving tradition, growing the future. Tourism was the next leap. I turned part of the front acreage into U-pick zones, installed picnic tables under shaded arbors, and laid gravel paths for easy walking. Weekends featured mini cherry festivals, live acoustic music from local bands, hay rides through the blossoms or fruit-laden branches, fresh pie samples, and kids' cherry pit spitting contests. Families from Grand Rapids and Chicago started marking their calendars. Ryan proved invaluable online. He built a clean website in a week: photos of sunrise over the Rose, booking calendars for U-pick slots, an online store for nationwide shipping. We shot raw, honest videos, me explaining why organic mattered, Ryan capturing time-lapses of blossoms bursting open, close-ups of dew on perfect cherries. Posted to Northern Michigan tourism pages, Traverse City visitor groups, and Instagram reels tagged with #Pure Michigan and /Cherry Season. Engagement exploded: shares from food bloggers, tags from visitors already planning trips. Then came the first full harvest under my watch, that glorious July when the trees hung heavy. We opened the gates on a Saturday morning to a line of cars already waiting. Families spilled out with baskets, laughing as they filled them under blue skies. Kids stained their shirts purple, parents snapped photos against the red-drenched branches. By noon, we'd sold out of pre-picked flats twice over. Online orders surged the same week. Jars of jam flew to California, New York, even Texas customers, raving about the intense flavor no grocery store cherry could match. The wine pre-sales sold out in days. Local restaurants begged for exclusive supply deals. Ryan tracked the numbers nightly. Eyes-wide revenue for that single season surpassed anything the orchard had earned in the last decade of grandfather's life, even adjusted for inflation. We celebrated quietly one evening on the porch, exhausted but electric. Fireflies blinked across the fields as we split a bottle of our first vintage. "You did it," Ryan said, clinking his glass against mine. "Proved every doubter wrong." I looked out at the darkened rows, feeling grandfather's presence in every leaf. The land was thriving: healthier soil, happier trees, a community drawn back to its roots. And for the first time, it was undeniably mine. Success has a way of drawing out the worst in those who can't stand it. Nathan's downfall started long before he admitted it. That spring, drunk on certainty that the orchard would soon be his, he'd marched into the local bank and leveraged everything: their house equity, Kayla's condo, even a second mortgage on Mom and Dad's place. Hundreds of thousands more earmarked for the industrial expansion he'd dreamed about for years. The loan officer had shaken his hand warmly, congratulating him on the impending windfall. Then summer hit, and with it, the undeniable proof that I wasn't failing. Cars lined the roads on weekends, social media buzzed with photos of happy visitors holding overflowing baskets, and shipments of George's Legacy jars left the barn daily. The community talked about the revival of the old Bennett orchard, not its collapse. Nathan couldn't stomach it. He started in the places he knew best: the co-op meetings, the bar at the American Legion, the hardware store parking lot. Whispered conversations over coffee turned poisonous. "She's got no real experience," he'd say, voice low but carrying. "Just sweet talked a confused old man into signing everything over. Wait and see, the whole thing'll go bankrupt by winter. Organic nonsense doesn't pay the bills." Word spread like blight. Old suppliers he'd counted on grew hesitant, quoting higher prices or dragging their feet on deliveries. A few seasonal workers who'd planned to return bailed after hearing rumors of imminent closure. Kayla took it online, where she could hide behind a screen. In the Traverse City Cherry Festival group, the Leela Now Orchard Owners page, even the local moms network, she posted veiled attacks. Sad to see a family legacy ruined by someone who never worked a real day here. One read paired with an old photo of Nathan in the fields. Comments piled on, some sympathetic, others questioning. She liked every negative reply, fanning the flames while pretending to grieve. The bank noticed first. By late August, statements showed no new collateral incoming. Calls started polite reminders about covenants tied to expected inheritance. Then firmer. Nathan dodged them, at first promising updates. Any day now. When the orchard's revived revenue hit industry newsletters, the tone shifted to demands. Accelerate payments, provide alternative security, or face foreclosure proceedings. At home, the pressure crushed them. His wife, once excited about the big plans, stopped sleeping. Arguments echoed through their walls over maxed credit cards, overdue bills, the kids' school fees. She begged him to get a regular job, anything stable, but Nathan obsessed over every post about my festival. Crowds convinced sabotage was his only way back. Mom watched it all unravel in silence, the way she'd watched everything else. Dad buried himself in golf league, pretending the family wasn't imploding. Then one crisp October night, after the leaves had turned fiery red, headlights swept across the log house driveway. I looked out to see Mom's old SUV parked awkwardly near the porch. She climbed out alone, wrapped in a coat too thin for the chill face pale under the motion light. I met her at the door. She wouldn't come inside, just stood on the steps, hands twisting the belt of her coat. "He was clear-headed," she said without greeting, voice barely above a whisper. "Your grandfather. Right up to the end. The doctor checked every time he signed anything important. Harold has the records." I waited. "Nathan's in real trouble. The bank's talking foreclosure on the house. His wife's beside herself, threatening to leave with the kids. Hundreds of thousands, Victoria. More than we can cover." Her eyes flicked up to mine, pleading. "Can't you think about sharing? Just enough to get them out of this hole. For family." The word hung between us like smoke. I studied her face, the lines deeper now, the exhaustion she'd hidden for years. "You mean, sell off pieces, mortgage it, everything grandfather protected against?" She looked away toward the darkened trees. "Just something. Anything. Before it's too late." "Would you tell the bank that, or Nathan, that grandfather knew exactly what he was doing?" Silence stretched long enough for crickets to fill it. "I can't," she murmured finally. "Not against my own son." She got back in the car without another word, taillights disappearing down the gravel road. I stood there long after the autumn wind cutting sharp, feeling the full weight of how far they'd fallen and how little they'd changed. Desperation turns people ugly in ways you never expect. By early November, official papers arrived. Nathan and Kayla had hired a cutthroat attorney from Grand Rapids and filed to contest the will. Undue influence and lack of testamentary capacity, the same accusations they'd whispered for months, now stamped and served. They claimed grandfather had been too frail, too confused to know what he signed. The months waiting for trial became open war. They doubled down on the smear campaign. Kayla posted long, tear-streaked threads on every local Facebook group detailing how I'd stolen the family birthright and was running the orchard into the ground with reckless experiments. Nathan created anonymous accounts to amplify it, sharing doctored photos of empty fields and dead branches, images from years ago before my changes took hold. Community pages lit up with arguments. Some longtime customers canceled standing orders citing family drama. Weekend visitor numbers dipped for the first time since opening. Harassment followed. Unknown numbers rang the farm line at odd hours, heavy-breathing hang-ups once a slurred threat to burn it all down. Ryan installed security cameras after we found a row of newly planted Regina saplings snapped at the base trunks sliced clean with what looked like pruning shears. No proof, but we knew. Then came the call I dreaded. Nathan's name flashed on my phone one rainy afternoon. I almost let it ring out but answered anyway. Victoria. He started, voice uncharacteristically soft. We need to talk. Really talk. I stayed silent. Look, the lawsuit, it's just leverage. The bank's breathing down my neck. If we lose the house... He trailed off, then pushed on. Just give us a piece. Sell off 20 acres, or let me manage a section. Enough to pay this off and keep everyone afloat. We're family. You can't watch us drown. The plea twisted something old inside me, but I heard the calculation beneath it. No, I said quietly. Grandfather's wishes were clear. The softness vanished. You selfish bitch, he hissed. You'll regret this. I'll bury you in court. I'll make sure no one ever buys another jar from your precious little hobby farm. I'll take everything you think you've built. He hung up before I could reply. Spring brought the trial date. The courthouse in Traverse City was packed, locals curious about the Bennett drama, reporters from the Record Eagle in the back. Nathan sat rigid beside his lawyer, Kayla next to him, clutching tissues. Mom and Dad were there too, faces drawn. Uncle Douglas, Dad's older brother, who'd always stayed neutral in family fights, sat on their sidearms crossed. Their attorney went first, medical records cherry-picked to highlight grandfather's hospital stays, neighbors, testifying to moments of forgetfulness in his final year, a psychologist paid to opine on vulnerability to influence. Nathan took the stand, voice cracking, as he described years of carrying the orchard while I abandoned it. My turn. Mr. Mitchell presented the basics, witness signatures, doctor's competency exam the day of signing. Then he dimmed the lights and played the video grandfather had recorded 6 months before, passing stored safely with the firm. On screen, he sat in his cottage chair, steady and sharp-eyed. If you're watching this, something's happened to me. I want no doubt I'm of sound mind. Victoria understands this land like no one else. She's the only one I'll trust to keep it whole. Nathan wants to pave it over for profit. I won't let that happen. This is my final word. The courtroom went still. Nathan's face crumpled. Then, unexpectedly, Mom stood. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge nodded. She walked to the stand, hands shaking but voice firm. George was lucid every time we talked about the will. He knew exactly what he wanted. I was there for some of those conversations. He wasn't manipulated. He was protecting what he built. Kayla let out a choked sob. Nathan stared at Mom like she'd betrayed him. Uncle Douglas shifted in his seat but said nothing, his silence louder than any defense. After brief closing arguments, the judge ruled from the bench. Will upheld in full. Contest dismissed with prejudice. Nathan and Kayla ordered to pay all court costs, plus my legal fees, tens of thousands they couldn't spare. They filed out without looking at me. Mom paused at the door, eyes meeting mine for a second, regret, maybe relief, before following the others into the hallway. I walked out into bright May sunlight, feeling the weight lift, the orchard finally truly safe. Justice has its own slow, inexorable rhythm. A few months after the judge's gavel fell, the consequences landed hard. The bank foreclosed on the original Bennett family home, the one my parents had lived in for decades. Nathan's massive loans, built on nothing but arrogance and expected inheritance, came due with no extension possible. Auction signs went up on the lawn where we'd once played as kids. He lost everything: the house, the land around it, even most of the equipment he'd bought on credit. His wife reached her breaking point. She packed up the children and left for her sister's place downstate, filing papers shortly after. The stress of drowning debt, the humiliation of the trial, the endless fights — it was too much. Nathan was alone with his regrets and a mountain of bills. Mom and Dad, Patricia and Stephen, had no choice but to downsize drastically. They moved into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Traverse City, sharing the space with Nathan in tense, unspoken silence. The grand house with its wraparound porch and view of the orchard was gone, replaced by thin walls and fluorescent lights. Pride wouldn't let them ask for help elsewhere. I heard about it all secondhand through old neighbors and local gossip that still trickled in, but I never responded. Not long after the ruling, I'd changed my phone number, set up a new email, and installed an electronic gate at the orchard entrance with keypad access only for staff and deliveries. Any messages that found their way through old channels went unread and deleted. Calls from unknown numbers were blocked on sight. The family I'd once known no longer existed in my world. I owed them nothing: not forgiveness, not explanation, not a lifeline. The next cherry season arrived like vindication painted across the sky. By the following summer, the Bennett family cherry orchard had become the crown jewel of northern Michigan tourism. Word-of-mouth, glowing reviews and features in travel magazines turned George's Legacy Cherries into a must-visit destination. Cars stretched for miles on opening weekends, families eager to wander the organic rows, pick their own fruit straight from the trees, and taste jams that captured pure summer in every spoonful. We expanded thoughtfully, added a small cafe, serving cherry pies, baked fresh, daily installed shaded pavilions for picnics, and hosted evening concerts under the stars during peak bloom. Revenue shattered every previous record, allowing us to hire a full-time crew of passionate locals who believed in sustainable farming the way grandfather had. Scholarships for young agricultural students were funded from profits, keeping his spirit alive in new ways. Ryan and I built something real together, not just the business, but a life. Mornings started with coffee on the porch, watching mist rise off the fields. Evenings ended with team dinners in the log house, laughter echoing where silence once reigned. The staff became family: the ones who showed up early for pruning, stayed late for harvest, celebrated every milestone like it was their own. We were bound by shared effort and respect, not blood. Looking back from that place of hard-won peace, the lessons crystallize clear and sharp. Greed and favoritism can rot a family from the inside out, turning love into resentment and legacy into battlefield. Blind loyalty to the wrong people destroys more than it protects. But real success built on skill, integrity, and vision is the most cutting revenge of all. It doesn't need shouts or scores settled in courtrooms. It simply thrives while everything else crumbles. And sometimes the healthiest choice, the only choice, is to walk away completely. Cut the toxic ties clean. Guard your peace and the trust placed in you with everything you've got. Grandfather believed in me when no one else did. Protecting what he entrusted isn't betrayal, it's the ultimate loyalty. Today, as I stand among trees heavy with fruit, watching visitors create memories beneath branches he planted decades ago, I know he was right. This land endures because someone finally chose to honor it properly, and I've found my real family among those who value it the same way. If you're listening to this story and recognizing pieces of your own, whether it's unfair treatment, stolen dreams, or the weight of expectations, remember your worth isn't decided by who sidelines you. It's proven by what you build when you refuse to stay broken. Rise on your own terms, protect your legacy fiercely, and never be afraid to close the door on those who never truly opened it for you.